So today, the United States officially withdrew from the UN Paris Agreement. It is pretty ironic that that happened today because the elections were held yesterday. It took 4 years for Trump to get the US out of the UN Paris Agreement. The way things are going, maybe Trump will be back for 4 more years. 4 more years of a Trump presidency is going to very dangerously hamper the progress of climate change mitigation and fighting the climate, fighting dangerous climate change across the globe. We are on track for a 2.4 to a 3.6 degree centigrade rise with current activities, current interventions, current focus. During Trump's time, he has rolled back over 160 environmental regulations because he believes that reducing regulations means creating more jobs. But that has not been the case. Very clearly, we can see that there have been over 5,000 job cuts from the coal sector. That's because the mining sector is in decline. So Trump can totally ignore the fact, but the reality remains that even America is marching towards incorporating fossil fuels into the energy mix in a very, very strong way. It's already there, but we need to take it forward. But the thing is that if Trump is back in office for the next 4 years, it's going to be a really slow and painful process. So pulling out of the Paris Agreement actually sends a very strong message to the world that the United States is in no longer is in consensus with the international climate community. And it also allows countries like Brazil and Saudi Arabia to stymie their efforts to reduce carbon emissions. Because if America can do it, why can't we? Kind of attitude. So these are the hardcore dangers of Trump coming back in the next 4 years. That basically the United States won't really be an active participant of the international climate negotiation process. In the US, the fight to stop dangerous climate change is now, if Trump comes back for the next 4 years, the fight to stop dangerous climate change is now on the shoulders of cities, the states, and the private organizations that have formed their own net zero targets. So essentially, a net zero target is when a city, state, or organization completely says no more GHG emissions. We're not going to emit any more carbon equivalent emissions, and also take away some carbon from the atmosphere. So this is basically, in very simple layman's language, what a net zero target is. So there has been an effort, there has been a push privately by these sub-state actors, by these subnational actors rather. So this is the only momentum, if Trump comes into office for the next 4 years, that we could, hope for from the United States. So this progress itself has been pretty amazing. It was not foreseen. The net zero emission targets and the net zero emission plans were not foreseen even almost 2 years ago. They came as a consequence of the 1.5 degree report. This is IPCC's report that came out in 2018, which really motivated the global community to step up in their activities to fight climate change and to keep global warming under 1.5 to a maximum of 2 degrees. The ideal setting is 1.5. Even 2 degrees would be very, very disastrous for many people, many communities, many countries. So now going forward, looking at the situation if Biden comes in. Biden is definitely lesser of the two evils. He is not the best option, but he is a much better option than Trump, incomparably. Biden has vowed to return the US to the international negotiation table and rejoin the Paris Agreement. So the earliest that he can make that happen, if he was to be voted in, is in January. January is when the president-elect would be nominated to be sworn into power, and sometime in Jan. And essentially, then it would take, if he was to start the process immediately, it would take approximately a month to re-enter the Paris Agreement. So ironically, it takes 4 years to leave, but maybe as less as 1 month to return. This is provided everything is smooth and things can move forward. So I foresee that much of Biden's efforts in the first term would be just to undo the damage that Trump has done. All these various environmental regulations that he's rolled back, bring them in, bring back power to the renewable energy sector, bring back subsidies to that sector, get very, very strongly decarbonize. That is the only way forward. So Biden actually has a plan for climate change as part of his manifesto, and he basically, the plan for climate change involves the US achieving 100% clean energy economy and reaching net zero emissions no later than 2050. I strongly think that maybe it is a little bit ambitious for US to have a net zero emission. That would be absolutely amazing and the ideal case scenario. It would be applauded across the board and supported across the board, I'm sure. But at this time, if Biden was to come into power, he would have a really hard task in getting the US back into the Paris Agreement, getting the US, coming up with a interim term plan to get the US back into international negotiation table. And he would need to focus at the very least on reducing greenhouse gas emissions through the use of excessive fuels and move away the US economy from natural gas to renewable energy and allow the potential of natural sinks to do their job. And that would be really where most of his effort would go in his first term. This is already asking for a lot, but at the same time, it is a minimum. So 4 years ago, what we needed from the United States was basically 3 trillion in the Green Climate Fund and their NDCs. So that's naturally determined contribution, which is something that everyone who signed up, all the countries that signed up to the Paris Agreement had to submit, you know. So, but Trump scrapped everything. The US contributed about 1 trillion to the Green Climate Fund, and then Trump just erased and scrubbed all mention of US contribution to the international negotiation treaties and things like that. So, but now what we need from the United States is much more, because we've lost all this time and the rest of the planet has gone ahead. The EU has come up with binding net zero plans. China has come up with their pledges to go net zero, to have peak emissions by 2030 and net zero by 2060. And Japan has also decided on a very amazing net zero plan. So everybody is getting on board. US is way behind. So what we need from the US right now is to, everything I've said, to catch up and to go back to being a leader. So that is what we need from the United States.